Hi, everybody. I'm just waiting for Pragya to join in today. Uh, we're doing this question and answer session on fertility, pregnancy, and yoga. If you've just logged in, Pragya is going to join in a second. And once she does that, we trace her journey through pregnancy and understand how she in this entire journey. Pragya has just joined in. Hi, Pragya.
Hi, Medha.
Thank you
Can
so
you see
much
me
for
clearly?
taking the time to talk to us today.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we have a wonderful conversation lined up for today, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Yes. And as a person who has, seen you through this journey, I think it was a very important thing when we discussed that we should talk about it because I think fertility and yoga, I mean, everybody talks about how yoga works very well during the journey of pregnancy, but, to talk about all of the things that actually, you face, the things that can sometimes take you off track
Yeah.
and things that are not very straightforward. I think those are the things that very often get missed. I think even in your own journey, I think I heard, at some point you were telling me that the moment you started talking about the things that you were facing, you started realizing that a lot of people go through it, but they just don't talk about it. So thank
Yeah.
you so much for joining us today, and let's get started.
Yeah. So, Medha, are you able to see me clearly? Because your video, like, I can't see you.
Oh, uh, here you can
Are you able to see
clearly.
me?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yes.
Because for some reason yours is a blank screen. Let me just see if I can. Hmm. Okay. So on my
So
screen, actually, yeah. Okay,
we're
we can see both
hearing
of
from
you
the
clearly.
audience.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so as long as everybody can see us, that's okay. I just see a blank screen, but that's okay. Maybe it'll come in some time.
That's okay.
Okay.
All right. So let's get started. Um,
Yeah.
Imagine my face so that you can think of this as a
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
All right. So, let's get started. Like, tell us
Mhm.
about your journey so far. From the time you decided to conceive,
Yeah.
what happened? Take us through your story.
So it's a story that I think a lot of women are facing right now. It's like there's nothing really different about the story. So usually they say that for women over 35, some people say for women over 30, when once you decide that you want to conceive, you should try for like 6 months, and then go to the doctor if it's not happening, and then and then try for like another year, another 6 months, so a total of 12 years. And if it doesn't work, if it doesn't happen, then you're supposed to consult a doctor. So for us, it was pretty much the same. We decided to start conceiving during the lockdown, during the second lockdown. And initially, like I think we tried 4 months and it didn't work. And then I consulted a doctor. And this is all online. I consulted her and she said, okay, just keep trying for another 6 months. She gave me some supplements like folic acid and the usual things that women are supposed to take when they're trying to conceive. So she gave me some folic acid and she said, okay, keep trying. And so, we kept trying for like another 6 months, then for like another 6 months. So it was a whole year. And then, I still had not conceived. And so we decided to go in and actually consult doctors to find out like if there's anything else that we could do. And yeah, we went to the doctor and, we did a bunch of tests. Like doctors will generally tell you to do like a thyroid test or a blood sugar test. And there are a bunch of tests that they give you to try to ascertain like what is wrong, if there is something wrong. So, and these are tests for both the women, and the man. And so we saw that, mostly, largely, like everything was okay. I wasn't really expecting that, we would find any big problems, because I had a healthy lifestyle. I was eating well, and I wasn't feeling, I usually wouldn't fall sick, and I wasn't really feeling that there was anything wrong. And so we did these tests, and in the tests, I've mentioned it in one of my stories as well, that we discovered that my AMH was low. That's a hormone. And that hormone is basically an indicator of your ovarian reserves. So, and as you grow older, it's supposed to come down, like the number comes down. So, and as soon as we got that, all the doctors just said, well, if you have low AMH, it means that there are hardly any eggs left, and therefore conception is going to be really difficult for you. And you are already, I think I was 39 or 40 at the time. Well, you're 40, and so this is never going to work for you. They actually said that it's the age factor. Like, that was their what they would say, that this is the age factor, and it's supported by the fact that your AMH is so low, and so you should just go for IVF. So
That must have been quite stressful.
yes, it was. It was actually, because the way they were, I felt like it was very, the way that they just sort of said, okay, low AMH, and you're old, and you just need to go for IVF. I felt that there wasn't really like a conversation that the doctors were having with me, or they weren't going deeper into it. It was me who like went online, and I Googled about what AMH is and does it mean anything, and I found out that actually it doesn't. It's very natural for it to become lower as you grow older. It's very natural. And when I looked at the when I looked at like the range of AMH for women my age, it was perfectly normal. So I just kept, I just kept feeling that the doctors were just, sort of using the data to support whatever they wanted, which was to put me through IVF. So
Did you consider
it was just,
IVF at that point?
no, I never considered IVF. We never considered IVF. I knew, and there's the reason, and there's nothing wrong with IVF. I mean, I don't want to make it seem like it's something that people shouldn't do, or that it's technology after all, and it has helped so many people. So I don't want to say, I don't think that there's anything wrong with IVF, but I felt like we were being pushed into IVF with a very just sort of being pushed into it. Like, doctors just really wanted to sell. They were pitching IVF, and they wanted to sell IVF, and I wasn't comfortable with it, particularly because I wanted to get more clarity, about what was going on. So I was shocked, and when they told me, well, you just have to go for IVF, because I really I wasn't convinced, because they weren't really telling me anything. They were just saying, well, AMH is low. And, I was like, okay, but that's normal. That's natural, for AMH to be within this range for people of my age. But then, and when I would say that, then they would say, well, it's just the age factor. And then if you tell doctors that, well, I know people who are 43 years old, 44 years old, and they have conceived naturally and had great pregnancies, doctors would just say, well, that happens, but there's not much of a chance of that happening. And they were projecting IVF as though it would definitely work. And through my research, I found out that, even IVF is, you really have to, it takes a few cycles for it to work and stuff like that, So I really wasn't, I wasn't keen on IVF, because they weren't, I guess they weren't able to sell it properly to me. And somebody in the comments has said
You're a
IVF is a
hard
business.
customer.
Yeah, I was a hard customer. I think I just had, like, because, I had been practicing yoga for so long, and because, and particularly because I'm a teacher, and I have, I've dealt with women's health. I did an MSc in yoga, and, like, we studied so much. We studied the female anatomy, and we studied so much, about diseases and conditions. I think for me, it wasn't territory which I was intimidated by, So when it came to researching about my own experiences, or my own like health and my hormones and hormone levels, and even asking questions, like pointed questions to the doctors. I think it wasn't daunting for me. I wasn't treating doctors as though they're people who know so much more than me and I have to listen to them. I wasn't treating them like that. I was probably treating them like my professors in college, where you ask them questions and you ask them to explain things to you.
Your doctor
And I think a lot of doctors
must have
like,
hated you then.
yeah. I changed so many doctors. Like all my doctors, like they were quite surprised also. They were quite surprised that there's a patient coming in, and like I would tell them pointedly that AMH is within this, and that's normal. So why are you saying that AMH is a problem? And whenever I would say that, they would say, well, it's not just the AMH, it's also your age. And then I would say, well, there's so many people who've conceived like later. And then they would say, so there were fibroids also in my uterus. And they would say, well, then that is the problem.
Okay.
So they would just, I mean, I think as a patient, I just felt that they were just trying to convince me in any way possible. And that wasn't like an approach that would work for me. I mean, I felt like they were trying to confuse me, sometimes convince me, and I think I could hold my own because I had been practicing yoga for so long, and the female body, the problems of the female body were nothing new for me. And I just somehow felt that, I'd like to work with it rather than just go for IVF or just go for some sort of surgery. I was like, okay, let me work with my body and try to understand my body and see where I can get. Yeah.
So do you feel that attitude or that predisposition came from you practicing yoga and you teaching yoga? Could you tell me a little bit more about where your disposition towards understanding, okay, okay, this is a solution they're presenting, but with the current set of circumstances, I need to figure out how to navigate that instead of jumping into an altogether new solution. Where did that
Yes.
sense come from?
I think so from the beginning, when doctors started to come out and say, okay, well, you have fibroids also, and you have low AMH, and then you're 40, and when doctors started to say all of these things to me, and I supplemented everything they were saying with my own research, I discovered that that there's so many contradictions. Even in medical science, different doctors will give you different that have a different approach. They'll give you different advice. So what I decided to do was I decided to actually speak to real women, like women within my network. And the moment I did that, the moment in my experience, the moment you tell another woman that you have an issue like PCOS, let's say, or you tell them you have painful periods or anything that you can't really, that's not really commonly talked about or like very openly talked about. In my experience, women are just so forthcoming. They like everyone who I spoke to, whether they were friends or friends of friends or just contacts, that my friends had. All the women were so forthcoming. So I then, started to get real life cases. I came across real life cases where, for instance, women had gone through IVF and it had not worked for them. So like a lot of doctors told me, IVF, it's very easy and this much percentage of success. Doctors were selling IVF like that. But then I actually managed to speak to women who had been through IVF, and they were like, it's very difficult. And this is personal experiences, so, and I just trusted the personal experiences a lot more than what the doctors were saying, because the doctors were just talking about statistics, So I think that really helped me. I think that approach really helped me. That I was very open about wanting to talk about, what I was going through and learning from other women. And the women that I found were very, very supportive. I also, because I'd been practicing and teaching yoga for a long time, I have a huge network of yoga teachers and yoga practitioners. So I remember we spoke about it also. I remember, we were at a workshop where I spoke to the teacher about it also. And so I think I was very open, to listening to not only real life stories, but also like from alternative healthcare practitioners, I think that's what I did differently, because a lot of people just, go to the doctors and then they sort of just think that what the doctor is saying is law, whatever the doctor prescribes
But I think that there's a big lesson here, right? Because I think a lot of times what happens is that there's a lot of taboo around this as well. The moment
Yes.
you have fertility based issues, it takes a lot of courage to be able to stand up and say, well, I'm facing this. Because on some level, I feel like there is a judgment against the woman or the person who's suffering this. And I feel like maybe that's a lesson to learn from your experience, to say that, just to be vocal about this may just be the solution.
Yes, I agree with you because I think like a lot of like the previous generation, a lot of the older people, a lot of people who come, there are lots of people who hold this view, and a lot of women also. And um, I don't want to sort of like blame a woman for feeling this way because I feel that there's a lot of conditioning that goes around it, where your body is designed to conceive. It's the most natural thing. These are messages that keep coming to women from when you're very small. Like these are like messages that are like omnipresent in our in our environment. But I do feel that you have to sort of take your health, you have to be empowered about your health, you have to feel responsible for your health, and if you don't talk about, I think talking about it was the best thing I did. Talk and do you remember, like in that workshop where we were with the teacher, he actually made me an example, and he made he spoke about it so openly to like 50 students or 70 students, however many students there were. Yes, there is a lot of hesitation. It wasn't like I was very comfortable with that happening, but at the end of the day, I feel that it's you who has to discuss these things because you are going through it, and if it is up to you, it's your responsibility to try to find the best solution for it. So
Yeah.
I don't, yeah, I feel that women should discuss it, and not, you don't have to discuss it on social media, but discuss it with like your friends. Ask for recommendations for doctors. Ask for recommendations for like I've spoken to women who've undergone IVF. I've spoken to women who have PCOS issues, fibroids, who've conceived at a later age. Women really want to talk about it, and so if you just like sort of get over that initial hesitation, then you'll feel really empowered. I think a lot of my empowerment came from that.
Yeah, that's wonderful, Pragya. But I think also, uh, I think the other downside to that is that you also get a lot of advice.
Huh.
So I think that that's where you have to balance it
Yeah.
out and find out what you want to follow. Uh,
Yes.
so just going a little bit further. So now you have this diagnosis, and they've given you a solution
Yeah.
which you're not very happy with, and you're still
Mhm.
trying the
Yeah.
natural way. So were there any practices that you intuitively reached out to? Were there any tools that you used? What did you do then?
So, yoga has always been constant, So yoga, I've been practicing yoga for a long time, but I actually spoke to two senior yoga teachers, and they gave me a routine which I practiced without fail, like every day. It really required me to change, like how I was practicing. So like in it, like most both of the yoga teachers were like, you have to relax, you have to like sort of stop stressing, causing stress to your mind and to your body. So my yoga practice changed like so much. But I had a lot of faith in my yoga practice. So that is one thing that was non-negotiable, and I've been practicing yoga throughout the pregnancy. Other things that I started exploring were like alternative healing. Like I tried acupuncture as well.
Mm-hmm.
I even consulted a Siddha doctor, just to get their view on it,
Mm-hmm.
Along with that, also like a lot of meditation, a lot of pranayam, all of these things which are basically designed to slow down the mind and the body. These were the tools that because I just believe in alternative health, so these were the tools that I reached out to. Also,
Wait, let me just interrupt you there. So
yeah,
now you reached out to a whole bunch of holistic health practitioners,
yeah.
right? So what did you hear back from them?
So these guys were very different from the allopaths. in holistic health, the mind is a very important component, you know. So most of them told me to again slow down, you know. So sit in meditation for for some time. Some of them would, you know, give me like recordings, like something on YouTube to listen to, or some audio to listen to. Basically, anything that would slow down the mind and the body. And one more thing is that none of them thought that this would not happen. You know, none of them thought that I had a problem. Really, like that's a marked difference between what I was hearing from the allopaths and from the from, you know, alternative healers. The alternative healers were like, "There's no problem," you know, and so that gave me a lot of courage and hope, and you know, a lot of support also, because those doctors are very different. You know, they're more healers. They look at you holistically. They look at your mind, then they look at the body. So I think, yeah, all of that really helped.
So, do you think
Hmm.
that slowing down helped you?
Yes, for sure. You know, I think, see, all, so the first thing that you learn as, you know, when you become a yoga teacher is like the routines are customized based on your body. Like, you know, we customize sequences, and, you know, based on your body, based on your capacities and capabilities. So so here also, you know, I realized that so many of the doctors and so many of the alternative healthcare people were telling me to slow down, and maybe there is something that I need to do. And slowing down is really hard. You know, it's not just a matter of like just lying down in shavasana, which is what a lot of people think. Slowing down is actually like really like a progressive slowing down of the mind and the body, and the mind is very difficult to slow down. So yeah, I had to slow down, and I think that's what really worked for me. I think also, I think, you know, if you see the modern lifestyle, there is a lot of stress, you know, and we don't even realize it. Like stress manifests in our bodies in so many ways, you know. So I think stress is definitely something that should be eliminated, and all the alternative healers I went to, that is the first thing that they wanted to do. They wanted to eliminate the stress by slowing down the body and the mind, you know, and then work on the healing from the inside, rather than just trying some medicines, or just, you know, just trying for like an outward solution to the problem. So yes, it helped me a lot.
So, just to sort of rephrase what you're saying, because you know, a lot of times as yoga teachers, this slowing down of the mind is just one of those jargon things that you know you and I probably could understand, but just so that everybody else understands, does slowing down really mean that you make your mind less busy, or does it mean that you're not really engaging with something constantly? Could you find ways to explain this a little
Yeah,
bit more?
yeah. So I'll tell you. So I tried acupuncture also, and acupuncture is something that I would recommend to everybody, because uh, it just it feels good. It feels good for the body. It actually can relax
Mm-hmm.
you. So I remember my acupuncturist. She told me that, you know, just have, because I told her, like, what do you mean? You know, how can I get rid of stress, and what do you mean by this, and how do I slow down? The acupuncturist told me, you take half a day, you just work the first half of the day, and then the second half of the day, just relax. She said she used to garden. You know, when she was going
Mm-hmm.
through some, you know, similar issues, she said, I would just go into my garden, spend time gardening. You go ahead, if you like reading, if you like writing, just, you know, write and read. Just be in a state where you're not frazzled. You know, whatever you're doing, it's not goal oriented. You are just in the present moment. You're just working on your mind is not all over the place. You're not meeting a deadline. There is no goal in your mind. So I remember at the time I got a lot of these coloring books, you know, and that really helped, because I mean, there was no competition for me for the coloring, and you know, so I always think back to that, what you told me, that you take half the day off, and you just work in your garden, or you go for a walk. And I look at it as some space and some time for your body to be able to breathe, for your brain to be able to breathe, you know, so where there's nothing going on in your brain. So that is what I think, you know, they mean by slowing down.
which is almost counterintuitive, right? Because when you are facing fertility issues, there is a deadline, and people are saying you're getting older, and then things are not happening, and
Yes.
there's so much that's constantly like coming together, and then you have these people telling you have to do the exact opposite, which is create more space and say it
Yes.
doesn't matter, there's no competition, there's no deadline, there's nothing. And so it can be quite challenging, and I think that this is where the tools of yoga and alternate healing and just an activity which sort of help your mind not get consumed by that really helps.
Yeah. Also, I think a large part of like when you face fertility issues or you face any other issues for which there is no quick solution, I think a large part is the fact that um, holistic health healers and
Hmm.
practitioners, they will always talk about your mind. They will always ask you how you're feeling. They'll talk about your feelings. They will always give you this sense that there is time, that you're not on a deadline, you know. And now I'm going to be 42 when I have my first baby. And I remember that even at the age of 40 and maybe even 39, doctors, allopaths, would talk about it as though I had to have a baby next month, otherwise it's too late. So I found that there was a huge difference that, the allopathic fraternity, because they have all these statistics and all of that, they just work with you as though you are part of that statistic, right? And so that's why they have these deadlines, and that's why they just want IVF, because then in the next 6 months maybe you'll have a baby. But I found that when you talk about holistic health, the healer will always ask you how are you feeling. They will, even if they're doing like this was an acupuncturist that I was just speaking about. Her job is just to insert these needles into my body, and she doesn't really, she mind my like counseling me or talking to me is not really something that she has to do, but she does, because that's how holistic health works.
Hmm.
It's holistic, it's wholesome. So I think that's a huge difference between the two. And I think that if somebody is facing any kind of medical issue, particularly fertility issues, where if they're feeling rushed about things, if they're feeling pressurized by things that their doctors are saying, multiple doctors are saying, even if your immediate family is sort of putting pressure on you, I would really encourage that you look at other kinds of doctors, like alternative homeopaths or ayurvedic doctors or acupuncturists, because that's where the human factor will come in. Every single alternative healer I've been to, they have always asked me about my state of mind, and they've always sort of made the time expand. They've said, so what if you're 39? So what if you're 40? They've always said that. So it's sort of in your the time expands, So I think that's also different. And that's why I always like recommend that, yes, you go to the allopaths, take the medicines that they're saying, but you also consult somebody else who will look at you, at your system, as in a wholesome way.
Yeah, that is the second lesson, I think, because with deadlines and with trying to get a particular outcome, maybe it is controlling your blood sugar and getting it to a particular level, or conceiving, or healing a particular thing. If there is a timeline and you don't meet it, then everything just gets worse. Right? So I think that that's another very important lesson here. Thank you for sharing that. So uh now, how long did this entire phase last, and I mean, when did you realize that you had conceived? Was there any particular event around it, or was it just natural, and then, you suddenly
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
pregnant? How did that go?
Yeah, it was actually suddenly I was pregnant. We, I think, it's also been a journey of
Mm-hmm.
growth. And I think, and I'm able to say this in retrospect. I know a lot of people who are undergoing health problems right now or fertility problems right now.
Mm-hmm.
They're definitely not thinking about what can I learn from this, and what is this journey trying to teach me. I know, because I was at a point where I was like, okay, it's just not happening, and there was a lot of frustration, depression, There's a lot of like you're always constantly demoralized and nothing feels good, and you don't feel good about anything. So I've been through that. But like now in retrospect, I think that um if you do work on different levels, like for instance with the allopaths, I did not dismiss them. The allopaths gave me a lot of supplements like folic acid, and there were supplements that they gave me, and I took them regularly. So with a lot of faith, I was taking the supplements. Then my yoga teacher had given me a sequence. With a lot of faith, I was practicing the sequence
Mm-hmm.
also. There were other teachers who had given me some chants to listen to. I was listening to that, and I was really working on myself in a way. Like
Mm-hmm.
now when I think about it, it wasn't that I was working on just having a baby and being productive. That's another thing people like to say, like productive. I wasn't doing that. I was actually just working on myself, getting the proper supplements and trying to be stronger, overall stronger. So I think because of that, eventually it wasn't even like, oh, is it going to happen this month? Is it not going to happen this month? Eventually, when it did happen, it just happened, and I was caught by surprise. I was actually, so it took me 2 years. Okay. Imagine 2 years, month on month, you're checking, you're tracking your the cycles. It's very
Mm-hmm.
frustrating, but I think somewhere along the line, um, I I just decided that I should do whatever I can, but then not put anything else on hold. So like a lot of doctors had told me, that you shouldn't do anything strenuous with the body, don't work out very hard and things like that. To a large extent, I was following that, but I was also dancing. I was learning Mohiniyattam at the time. I conceived when I was dancing like 12 hours a day with my dance teacher. I was in Nagpur in her studio, and we were just dancing from the morning till the evening. And and that's, they tell you like there's that 2 week wait period, where you can conceive, and they tell you not to do anything during that time. But I was just dancing. I think by that time, I just decided that I should do whatever makes me happy, and
Mm-hmm.
not be like too dogmatic about what everybody was
Mm-hmm.
saying, but just work on being happy and doing what I want to do, what I like to do. And then it just happened. It happened. Yes, it happened naturally. And the doctors, when I came back to Bangalore, I went to my doctor for like to confirm it,
Mm-hmm.
and she said, she used the words medical miracle for it. She's like,
Wow.
this is a medical miracle. Yeah, yeah.
How did that
She
make
didn't expect
you
it.
feel?
I told her it must be the yoga. That's what I told her. It must be the yoga. And
But why
so,
did she
so
say it was a medical miracle?
well, again, I think allopaths work on statistics, right? So she felt that someone who has low AMH and who is 40 and or 41, and who I had a lot of fibroids in my system. So over a 2 year period, and fibroids is something a lot of women, it's very common for women. So over a 2 year period, when I started trying to conceive, the fibroids were on the outside of my uterus. By the time I conceived, there were about 3 fibroids inside my uterus. And at one point, one of them was as big as, as the fetus, as the
Oh my
baby. So,
goodness.
it was that bad. So she actually showed me on the ultrasound that, the egg has like sort of avoided wherever the fibroids are, and then gone and implanted where it's like not likely to implant at all, where there's
Wow.
very less chances. Yeah. And I remember saying that, yeah, you won't be able to explain it. It's the yoga. And like in yoga practice, we work on widening the pelvis, widening the hips. We work on trying to get the trying to enable the body to conceive better, so then that's what it is. Along with that, I was doing pranic healing as well, which
Mm-hmm.
provided me a lot of relief. And yeah, I remember telling her it's that, and she was like, no, I think this is a medical miracle. And I spoke to my pranic healer, and she's like, yeah, they'll say that it's a medical miracle, but we see this all the time. So
I think
that is
that's a
how it
very
happened.
good framework to have, right? To have that sense of possibility, especially when you are in a space where everything is looking dull and dreary and
Yes.
hopeless and things like that, to sort of be in touch with people who say, you know what, this is going to be possible. So let's just work on what we can.
Yes, exactly. And alternative health healers, they work like that. They work
Mm-hmm.
like that. Never, none, no, none of them have ever said go for IVF. None of them, although like my yoga teachers, they have always said to consult a good doctor, take the supplementation that they're asking you to take. No alternative health healer has ever put down the medical fraternity, as they should. Like, even we are taught that we have to work with what the doctors are
Doctors.
telling us, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so it was a very nice, like, mixture. Like, how the way they were telling me to work with it was a very nice, sort of it was synchronized.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't feeling like there's, even my healing and my therapies, I wasn't feeling like there's a contradiction. So in my mind, I was very relaxed about that also.
Mm-hmm.
you know I think, like, as a yoga teacher and a student, actually as a yoga student, I would not be comfortable with a yoga teacher who would tell me to discount everything a doctor says, you know
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, I don't mean to disrespect doctors. Like, doctors, there's so, medical science has helped, like, it's something that's important. they can
For
they can
sure.
analyze things, so I don't mean to if for people who are listening, I don't mean to say that you should just ignore what a good doctor is telling you. I'm just saying that you should find support in other places also, and that, things like yoga, things like meditation, for me, acupuncture, even pranic healing, all of these things work on healing you. So there's nothing wrong with even like trying these things. You should not think, oh, it's probably not going to help. You need to come from a place where you say it has worked for that person, so perhaps it's going to work for me. you know
So
so
you're
that
saying that feeling strong from within as a your whole mind body complex is always better to deal with this than just saying I'm going to work only on the body, I'm going to focus on just this.
Yeah.
So if you're feeling centered around you, then dealing with any of this becomes easier.
Yes, and yeah, and perhaps it's easier to say, than actually do this. But I think, again, like, I always tell women that you should talk about it. And so I would, say that, like, if you're feeling vulnerable, which you're bound to, you're feeling vulnerable, you're feeling, hopeless and dejected, and under a lot of pressure. I know a lot of women withdraw. Okay, but you should do the opposite. You should try and talk to people, and listen, like, to what people are trying to tell you. Listen, and listen with, like some sense of, like, okay, if it has worked for her, if it could work for her, perhaps it could work for me. It's just about that, you know.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think this has been a very enlightening conversation, Pragya. I think it leaves me with a sense of hope more than anything else, because knowing that things are not always going to be ideal, right? No matter, I mean, if you think about it, you've practiced yoga for donkey years
Yeah.
now, and you've been having a healthy lifestyle for so long. And even then, there are so many spaces where you are not going to be able to predict how your body reacts to different things,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? There are problems, and that is the reality of life. We don't know
Yeah.
what's going to come up, but just having that sense of there are things that you can still
Yeah.
do. How you live, what you choose, and what you look for can
Mm.
change really the outcomes of everything that we're doing. I think that's the biggest takeaway for me in this conversation. And I hope that this conversation inspires everybody to be more vocal, to reach out to more support systems, to create a space for themselves where they feel safe and they feel supported.
Yeah.
Come out of, sorry, did I just break?
Yeah. You're breaking a little bit.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. So I said, I hope people find that space where they can feel safe and they feel supported,
Yeah.
and where this vulnerability doesn't take over and sort of literally attack their entire life and their entire personalities and their entire being.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the last thing that I want to ask you is, could you tell me a little bit more? Now, we spoke a lot about the different healing modalities that helped you and in what ways.
Mhm.
So, I mean, you briefly touched about yoga, and could you tell me a little bit more about that? How yoga helped
Um,
you?
so yoga really helps. So I made this point in in like a previous live session that I did, that because I'd been practicing yoga for so long and I had access to such great teachers, and I actively went in search of great teachers to see if they could help me, even if I was not their student. Um, what happened was that I ended up, practicing very specific yogasanas, like sequences which were designed for my body and what I was going through.
So, could you
So
tell
um,
me about that a little bit more?
yeah, so um, pre-conception, like in order to conceive,
Mm-hmm.
that sequence, one of my teachers gave that to me, and it was again, like there was mostly I was like lying down, supine asanas were there, just to get the body and the mind sort of aligned and also relaxed. Then there would be a few standing asanas, but mostly everything was geared towards opening up the pelvis, giving a sense of space in the pelvis. And I think that really helped, because that's how, like, when my doctor said, well, the egg has, like, sort of avoided all of these places in the uterus where it could not implant, and then went and implanted, in the limited space that there was. I realized that that's what my teachers were trying to do. They were trying to give space in the pelvis, and thereby, like, the uterus would also expand and give more space, just sort of enhance the process of conception, of implantation. So that is what I was doing. And the thing is, like, there weren't that many asanas that I was practicing in the sequence. So, but everything had to be held for a long time.
Okay.
So if I was doing, even if I was doing a back bend, it would be completely supported. So the Iyengar style, you do it on a chair or on a bench or a stool, but the focus was on holding it for a long
Mm-hmm.
time, keeping the correct alignment, making sure the pelvis was expanded, and then holding it for a longer time. So these were the main things that I felt um, really helped, because what happens is, like, a lot of time doctors, allopaths, like, they'll suggest, oh, you should do yoga for fertility, and then people think, okay, I can just go to, like, the closest gym which has a yoga class, and then I can just that's the yoga that I'm doing. But as a yoga teacher, this really I would really like to drive this home for women, that not all yoga sequences should, can help in, like, for different diseases. Yoga is not just yoga, so if there's, like, yoga for fertility is very different from, like, yoga for, like, weight loss or something like that you'll find in the gym. So that was the main difference for conception. And then for once conception had happened, the same teacher gave me another routine. This routine took me an hour and 45 minutes, and it had,
Wow.
like, maybe, yeah, it's and I still practice that. And in this routine, for the first half an hour, I just go into the studio and I'm in a supine asana, so with my legs open in Padmakonasana. And these are supine asanas. We're told not to twist too much. The whole approach is just to keep the pelvis open, the stomach open, diaphragm lifted, so that
Mm-hmm.
the baby can breathe more, so that there's this sense of space and growth. So also, like, we always talk about mind body connection, and that's happening in that half an hour when you're just lying down. For a lot of people, that's boring, but that's what's happening. Also,
Mm-hmm.
you're focusing on your breath, you're
Mm-hmm.
focusing on your mind. Automatically, like, your mind slows down. So then after that, when I would do my standing asanas, because I'm so, like, for half an hour, your stomach is open, the diaphragm is lifted. that carries on to your standing asanas. Then I was doing inversions. I'm currently also doing inversions, all supported. Again, holding it, focusing on holding it and holding it with the correct alignment, with space in the pelvis and in the upper body. So that is what I mean by that yoga really helped. That's how the yoga helped. And so if you are, trying to conceive, or if you have conceived and your doctor is saying go practice yoga, it's
Find
it's the
someone who
local,
knows.
who knows, yes, the local gym is not providing the yoga that
You
is
need.
needed, that you need. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear this a lot as well, because a lot of people come to me and say, I've been doing uh, 24 Surya Namaskaras a day. I've been doing so many asanas. And, or they go the exact opposite way and they say, uh, I'm doing nothing at all. I'm just going walking and I'm lying down most of the day. And I think that both ways it doesn't work. You just have to find somebody who knows enough, excuse me, who knows enough to sort of teach you the asanas that
Yeah.
you need.
Yeah, and in fact, like initially when I went to my to one of my teachers, she does online classes, and initially she had me doing like 20-25 back bends, Urdhva Dhanurasanas every day, and she thought that perhaps my system was sluggish, you know and so she observed me like that for about 2-3 weeks, and then she like just changed my schedule, like my sequence. She like just overnight she changed it. She said, sluggishness is not your issue, you have to slow down. So yeah. So then, although we still have back bends in my sequence, it's not like 25 back bends, dynamic back bends and stuff. So, a good teacher will observe you, they'll give you proper feedback, and also they'll try, because again, all sequences are not for everybody. Everyone has their own unique needs, and your mental makeup, your physical makeup. So, and this my teacher was very accomplished. It took her about 2-3 weeks to observe me, see how the asanas are sitting on me, what's the impact that they're having, and then she modified it.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally we found a sequence that worked for me. And my responsibility as the student, or as a patient, is just to do it every day. You take the medicine every day, you do the yoga every day, and don't say, oh, by next month, if it doesn't work, then I'm not gonna do this anymore. Your responsibility, you should take it like that. And that's something I think we learn in yoga as long-term practitioners, that our responsibility is just to do the yoga, to practice the yoga to the best of our ability. And whether the asana comes or not, whether I conceive or not, that's not in my hands. But what is in my hands, what I can control, is that I take my medicines on time, and I do my yoga practice on time, and I try to relax. And so so I think I just worked on what I could, and tried not to think too much about what I could not control.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely, not just ignore the deadlines that people are telling you have, that you're getting old and all that. Just really try to ignore that, and just stay focused. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're giving us very simple but very hard things to do.
Yeah.
But I think that that's the only solution. So
Yeah.
there is really,
It's like, yeah.
it's not really very complicated, in the sense that it's not magical. It is
Yeah.
very much the everyday of this that works.
Yeah. Yes. And like, I think it really helped that I was practicing yoga for so long, right? Because every single because yoga, it's not fun every day, right? It's not easy every day. And there's so many, I mean, in like the long time, the years that we've practiced, I mean, there have always been distractions. There's always been something better and more fun to do, but we've stuck to the yoga practice that sort of disciplined us. I think that
Mm-hmm.
discipline sort of translated into like this whole journey also, where I said, well, if my teacher is saying I need to slow down, this is my sequence, and I just have to practice it. And once that initial boredom, that initial uh,
Resistance.
resistance, frustration, initially, when that sort of subsided, then I could make that mind body connection. You're lying down for every day of the week for half an hour before you start, before you complete the rest of your routine, that definitely like teaches you a lot. It disciplines you, it teaches you a lot. So I think, yeah, keep it simple, but like regular, stay disciplined, try to try to be in touch with people who are going through something similar, be open with them, and don't think that it's not going to happen. Give it time. Give it time.
Yeah, it's been quite a powerful conversation, Pragya. Thank you
Thanks.
so
Yeah.
much for being so candid about your entire experience. I think it takes a lot of courage to be able to come out and share it. And I hope that a lot of people who are listening in, who will listen in later, will take a leaf out of your book and find that strength to just help themselves. That's the
Yeah.
point of this story, right?
Yes, I hope
So
so too. Yeah.
thank you so much. So for the people who have logged in, this is a part of a series that we're doing. The next week we're going to be talking about the pregnancy journey and how what are the other things that you can do during your pregnancy. How does yoga help? What are the things that you need to keep in mind, not just in terms of the asana or the practice of it, but also what is the practice in the mind that you need to do? How do you build that resilience? How do you build that discipline? How do you build that clarity about what is happening? So that's what our next week's conversation is going to be. So please tune in at 4:30 next Sunday. Looking forward to getting back on this conversation with you, Pragya. So we
Yes,
log off
same here.
now. If
Yes.
you have any questions about this for either Pragya or me, mostly Pragya, uh, please do send us private messages, the DMs. We will try to address it in our next session. Um, so that's it for us today here. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
joining.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thanks, Meta. Thank you, everybody. Bye.